Let's move on though, because I want to ask you, uh, considering everything you've been through, do you want to give us a run through of where you've been, like what's been happening since January 6th, to start from the beginning?
Sure, absolutely. Just starting with January 6th forward?
Well, yeah, like how did you come to, like, tell us what happened,
Yeah. So after the election in 2020, I'd say somewhere around November 5th or 6th or 7th, in those early days afterwards, I was one of the people who decided to lend my voice. There were a number of conservative influencers who kind of decided to go to swing states around the country and basically throw rallies and, First Amendment protected events to encourage people to basically like keep the energy up and say, hey, we want an audit. We feel like something's wrong. Everybody, millions of people thought something was wrong. And so I went to the state of Michigan, and I lended my voice to 3 rallies when I was there, and then I went to D.C. for a couple. And so I was very much involved in this, what ended up being called the Stop the Steal movement. And on January 6th, I got invited to speak in D.C. at the Capitol. There were graphics that were made for the speakers. I was one of probably 100 people or more who had a graphic that there was supposed to be an event at the Capitol. So it was always my understanding that President Trump was going to speak at the Ellipse, that there would be a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol, and that there was going to be a second event at the Capitol. I was told it was a permitted event, which I believe it was. There was a stage, etc. And so on that day, everything sort of unfolded for me exactly as I was told that it would. President Trump said, now we're all going to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, and I'm going to join you there. So I started heading to the Capitol on the D.C. Metro for my speaking engagement. And as I was arriving at my stop, I started getting some text messages on my phone from people who I'm friends with or work colleagues of mine who were at home throughout the country watching on television saying, we're hearing on the news that people are going inside the building. And I didn't know what that meant because I have attended dozens and dozens of right-wing rallies over the years, and that type of thing never happens with conservative people. Conservative people are very, very calm, peaceful. So to hear that, it sounded strange to me. And honestly, the first image that it brought up in my mind was, I thought to myself, when left-wing protesters like Alyssa Milano even and Amy Schumer, for a number of different causes, have gone inside of government buildings, have gone inside the Capitol, and pounded on Congress people's doors or made noise, gotten dragged out. Usually it lasts like 6 seconds and they get pulled out. And the other thing that I thought was that I was envisioning in my mind like maybe a dozen people. When they're saying people are going inside, I thought like, a few people went inside to be like, we want an audit, and they're going to get pulled out and whatever. So as I get to the stop, I get off, and I'm heading toward the Capitol, and I decided to start shooting a video. And again, I've done enough events to know that if you're in a large crowd of people, live streaming is just not even a possibility. So I was like, I'm just going to record this into my camera roll on my phone, and then if I capture anything interesting, I'll cut it down and put it out on social media later. So I'm approaching the Capitol from the east side. This is the east side of the Capitol. This is the west side of the Capitol. This is a very important point to me that I make every time I do an interview, because the conservative media has done a terrible job of covering this story. So most people, even people who are supportive of people who got arrested, don't understand this. When you've seen the footage on the news of windows being smashed and struggles with police officers and flashbangs and things like that, as far as I know, that happened exclusively in the crowd on the west side of the building. People were breaking windows and going inside. So I didn't witness any of that. None of that. And in my video, which everything I'm about to say, you can watch with your own eye. You don't have to take my word for it. Just my video tells the same story. I started shooting my video about 3 blocks away from the Capitol and just took one long continuous video. As I'm entering the east side Capitol grounds, what you'll see in my video is that there are 0 police officers. Not a couple, not a dozen, 0 police officers. People are standing all over the grounds calmly. People are walking their dogs. People are carrying their babies. Everyone's calm. Everyone's just chit-chatting. And there are no barricades. There's a very, very large sidewalk on the east side. Large enough that you could drive cars on it. And it's completely open. There's bike rack over on the left in the lawn and bike rack over on the right on the lawn, but the sidewalk is open. This is all in my video. I followed the sidewalk up to the Capitol, where there were several thousand people standing around the steps. in my video, you see at the top of the steps a man motioning down to people below, and he's calling out, "They've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside." I repeated what he said as I'm filming, and then I went to the top of the stairs, and when I got to the top of the stairs, sure enough, both doors were wide open, double doors, large metal double doors of the Capitol, wide open. And there's a crowd of several hundred people at the top of the stairs. Nobody's being violent. Nobody's hurting each other or anybody. It was loud. It was a little bit loud, but and there were people standing in front of me. You know, I was about 35 feet away from the open doors, and a lot of people taller than me in front of me, and a lot of people were carrying flags on poles that were hanging down. So what I did was, while my camera's filming this video, I extended my arms fully above my head and pointed them down toward the doors so that my camera could capture things that my eyes could not see. And I stood there for about 8 minutes on the east side steps, filming as some people were making their way into the east side doors, open doors, and most people were just standing there, either filming or just kind of watching. And after about 8 minutes, a man came outside of the Capitol. He got on a bullhorn. He shouted into the bullhorn, "They've cleared Congress. Everyone's left the building. Clear out, clear out." And at that moment, I immediately turned around. I told the people behind me, they're saying to clear out, go this way, go this way.
Were you in the building?
I never went inside the building. I didn't get within 35 feet of going inside of the building. I mean, there were literally hundreds of people between me and the doors. And the crowd wasn't really moving. It wasn't a stampede. I mean, it was literally just like people kind of shoulder to shoulder, like going like this. And so I left the Capitol grounds and I went back to my hotel room in DC, and I took the video that I had just shot and I uploaded it to Twitter. It was, I think, about 8.5 minutes long. And I don't remember what I said, but I think I said something along the lines of, "This is what I witnessed today at the Capitol." Now, at the same time that was happening, I started to see this energy changing on Twitter, where I was starting to see all these conservative talking heads expressing like, "Oh my God, we're so ashamed of what happened at the Capitol today. We're so embarrassed. Oh, this is just the worst thing that's ever happened." And I thought that what I had witnessed with my own eyes and what I experienced, I thought that was it. I thought that was the Capitol breach. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it might not have been like our finest moment, but I was like, you know, the doors were open and people were walking in, and, you know, I don't know, maybe they shouldn't have gone inside, but I'm thinking this is the most embarrassing thing that people have ever seen. And so I made a few comments, you know, saying things like that I was not going to, you know, to speak against the people at the Capitol like all the other conservative talking heads were. I said these are people that are desperate to be heard. Nobody's listening to them, you know, and basically the comments that I was making made it sound like I was in agreement with whatever had happened at the Capitol.